but she couldn't be here, so she sent 3 of her best sisters to see us today. So we have Mother Alexa, who is in charge of all this hospital building that we have, being represented by Sister Mary Ann Tuping. And then we have Sister Clarence, who's being represented by Sister Marcolette Madden. And we have Sister Reinhardt, who's being represented by Sister Kate Clackner. And I will turn the performance over to them. Thank you very much.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Or Guten Morgen, as we would have said back then, in those days when we spoke the German. Well, I am Mother Alexia, and I was born here in this area near Manitowoc Rapids, and I was born on November 9th, 1854. Which means I am about 165 years old. So I feel pretty good for that.
You're looking good.
Later on, we moved to Whitelaw, and that's where my family lived then. My father was Joseph Fulmer. He was of German descent, and my mother was Margaret Whalen Fulmer, and she was of Irish descent. Now, I don't know if all of you know, but Mother Gabrielle is the founder of our community. And I had the privilege of knowing her as a young child. My family often provided her rides in our buggy so that she could get to church on Sunday. Now, she had a cute little nickname for me, but for her, I was known as Little Chunky Pauline. In 1877, I entered the Franciscan Sisters of Christian Charity. I was still chunky, but instead of being called Pauline, I was now given the name of Sister Alexia. For the first 10 years of my life as a member of this community, I was a teacher. And then at the young age of 31, in 1891, I was elected the Mother General of our Franciscan community. And I held that position for 5 terms, or 20 years. Now, while I was the Mother General then, I worked hard to provide needed health care in the areas where our sisters were already working. During my 2nd and 3rd term, our community established a hospital in Zanesville, Ohio, and a hospital here in Manitowoc. We also provided a home for the elderly in West Point, Nebraska. While I was in leadership position, I got to see the 25-year anniversary of our community, and then later I was still around when we celebrated our 50th anniversary as a community. I'm always kind of thrilled because my birthday, November 9th, falls on the date that we celebrate as our founding day. So that was always a special day for me. I celebrated my birthday and the birthday of the community. This is an interesting tidbit of information. Sister Caritas alluded to this being representing Mother Odilia. Mother Odilia had been the Mother Superior, or the Mother General of the community prior to my being elected. She was never in favor of us going into healthcare. And so I think it's rather significant that she died September 28th, 1899 at 2 a.m. in the morning as the hospital was being dedicated. So hopefully she blessed it. Now, we were pleased 2 years ago to come and make this presentation as well. And at that time, Sister Seraphica was able to be with us. Now, today, she was unable to come because she had to help St. Peter and pray hard, for there's a hospital around here somewhere that needs some heavenly guidance today. So we feel bad that she's not with us. But Sister worked at training our sisters as nurses in the St. Mary's Hospital. Now, in case you're wondering what that is, St. Mary's was the precursor to Holy Family Memorial Hospital. And that was located near St. Boniface Parish. Now, there's a cute story that when they moved from that St. Mary's to this location, they were so excited because they were going to finally have an elevator. In the old hospital, which was a 2-story building, if someone was ill, they had to carry them up the steps to their room or wherever they were going to be, or then bring them back down the steps. So remember, now they've been trained, they've been doing this for years. So the day that they made the move, they got everybody packed up, they put them in the vehicles, they brought them in the hospital, they carried them up the steps and took them to their room. And it wasn't until everything was in place when somebody finally remembered, we have an elevator. And they completely forgot about it. So kind of cute little stories that I remember from those days. Well, now I'm going to introduce Sister Clarence. Sister Clarence was the gardener here at the hospital. She raised food that went to feeding the patients and the sisters on staff. This garden was located where the present-day cancer center is located. Sister Clarence, please come on up and tell us your story.
Well, Mother Alexia, thank you so much. I remember you when I first entered. You were the one who was the Mother Superior.
Yes.
I was only 23, 18 years younger than you. And there you were, the Superior, a very kind, energetic, and I might say intelligent woman. You welcomed me to the community. Glory be to St. Patrick. What a wonderful, lovely audience. The saints be praised. Oh, glory be. Look at this lovely audience, smiling faces, people who are volunteers and in the medical field who have given their lives to continuing the mission of the hospital, the mission, healing mission of Jesus. My story, Sister Clarence Hennessy. I was born in Wexford, Ireland, and my family moved to Ironwood, Michigan, where I grew up. Now, I just wonder, could it be possible that a wee lass like me, coming from Ireland, having an Irish family, Irish culture, that a wee lass like me would end up joining a predominantly German community, because working in the kitchen for 40 years, I had to learn how to garden. As Sister Mother Alexia said, I had to plant cabbages, and I had to learn how to make sauerkraut. So that, God be praised, God got me through that. So my family was very religious, and you know what? In 1893, the Franciscan Sisters of Christian Charity came to Ironwood, Michigan. And that's how I got to know them. They were so fun-filled and dedicated, hardworking. They truly inspired me. So I did enter the Franciscan Sisters in 1998. As I said, I was 23. I was professed in 1900. And for 40 years, as I mentioned, I worked in the kitchen. Now, let me tell you, we did not at first even have our own food supply. No. The gardens at the mother house had been established. The food supply was at the mother house. So we had to get food supplies from the mother house. And Mother Augustine and Sister Magna would take the bus, they'd exchange transportation, and they would bring us, they brought us all kinds of food supplies, the meat, barrels of flour. Mother Augustine, years later in 1902, she said, enough of that. You have to learn to be independent, and so we can't be doing this. And so you have to start your own garden, and you have to be able to grow your own food, which we did. And that was quite challenging because in those days, here at the hospital, these were pioneer days, and the hospital did not have a garden that was established. So we had to get going with that. We worked very hard. I remember planting those cabbages. I remember Sister Augustine saying to me, remember that sauerkraut is a staple. So we had to carry through that theme. So we got through these pioneer days. And something that will strike everyone here, because when you heard Mother Alexia talk about the anniversary, which is actually this Friday, so September 28th, the 125th anniversary, the day that Mother Odelia passed away in the morning, right? That's the day the bishop, as she said, blessed the hospital, and it was Mother Alexia who asked the bishop to give the elevator a special blessing. 2 years later, she wanted a double blessing on the elevator.
Yeah.
Okay. 2 blessings. 2 years later, the elevator from the 3rd floor slipped and descended to the basement. There was a doctor in it, a patient, Sister Dolorosa, and Mother Alexia. And everybody thought, oh no, they did not expect them to be living. But what had happened is there had been a flood, and the water had descended down the elevator, and that cushioned the fall. And they walked out laughing and saying, isn't this great? You know, we had a good bath, and here we are. We're just fine and safe. So to get on with my story, I'm telling you that in the kitchen, because Sister Reinhardt, who's going to be speaking next, who came after me, and we worked together for a while, what we did is we learned to make meals for all the hospital patients. We knew that during the Depression years, there were workers who came, people without work, and they came to our doors. They were they felt embarrassed that they were so poor, but we did give them help. And we felt that that was part of our mission, just as everybody here who's in the hospital is dedicated to that mission. During the Depression years, it became apparent too that the city needed more employment, and thanks be to God, the shipping industry had a boom. And so in 1933, the shipyards got a big order for 3 ships and 5 lake freighters, which gave a lot more employment to the city. So I want to just end up with a couple more notes, thanking you for your attention and referring you to just a couple more things that in order to have all of this come together, we of course relied on the Lord's goodness. We had our prayers. I myself, I was a wee lass, rather rotund though, and I wore my glasses down on my nose, and I was very calm and quiet, but I wrote a whole history, which is over on that table. It's like a 30-page history. Every day, I would get in there and write what happened that day. So very fascinating. I feel privileged to have been part of the history, one of the initial founders of the hospital kitchen. So may the Lord bless you. May the wind rise up may the road rise up to keep you in his favor. And thank you for listening to Sister Clarence Hennessy. Oh, I didn't show my cabbage. Oh, that was a feature. Oh, yes, 1 minute. Yes. Thank you, Mother Alexia. Oh, yes.
She did very
More
well
sauerkraut.
in the
More sauerkraut.
And baking sauerkraut.
Yeah.
Well, Sister, I think I also remember making sure that you have what they call a sauerkraut stomper. So I hope you made good use of that. I think you did.
I did.
All right, very good.
And thank you for that implement.
Yes. Well, Sister Reinhardt, you worked in the kitchen as the cook for 54 years.
Oh, hello, St. Peter. I'm sure glad to see it's you. Sure looks pretty heavenly on the other side of these pearly gates. I'm Sister Reinhardt Harold. I was born on Earth on February 22nd, 1897 in Norman, Wisconsin. Oh, you probably know all that already. Okay. You want me to tell a few details about my life and some accounting of some good deeds, right? Well, okay. You know, it's quite a few years. It's 81 years now. Well, when I was 20 years old, I entered Holy Family Convent. And after my initial formation, I began my mission at Holy Family Hospital in Manitowoc. That was in 1917. I never left. I became a lifer. After 54 years in the hospital kitchen, they made me retire. But even after I retired, I remained at Holy Family Hospital and I visited the patients. The hospital was less than 25 years old at that time. You've met some of the people from that time. And the sisters did everything: dietary, cleaning, nursing, gardening, canning, clinical work, everything in those days. A lot of changes have happened since those years. The oldest parts of the buildings have come down, new wings have been erected, and many areas changed. However, the work in the kitchen was always steady. My day usually began around 4:30 or 5. The sisters headed to chapel for morning prayer, but not us, not the kitchen staff. We headed to the kitchen to begin the food preparation for the patients and for those who stay and work at the hospital. There were doors to unlock, steam to turn on for the coffee urn, water to heat for the coffee and cereal, gas range to turn on, and the fire in the coal stove to start. And then it was breakfast for the nurses prepared and sent off. And in between that, we were making the dough in the big mixer for bread. Next comes the morning preparation for the patients, the men, and the student nurses. Meat for the dinner had to be put in the oven. Breakfast for the poor at the door had to be prepared. Oh, but now it was time, 6 a.m., to dash up to chapel for Mass. And after Mass, the sisters, except for the surgery and lab and the kitchen sisters, they had meditation, but not us. Then the phones began to ring, 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 and ring. New patients came overnight. More food was needed. The little child in peas needed a banana, and on and on and on the phone would go and ring for all the different needs. The poor men at the door were rapping on the door, waiting to carry out the garbage and the ashes to try to earn their breakfast. The food for the patients was set up on the dumbwaiters to the floors. The breakfast was ready for the patients, and extra care was taken, including more coffee for the poor. 7:10 was the bell for the sisters' breakfast, which was bread, jam, butter, toast, hot and dry cereal, juice, coffee, and sometimes eggs or meat and radishes. We tried to be on time for breakfast, but lots of times we were late. Soon after, the food is all gathered again as the floors send their kettles down on the dumbwaiter. Ice is sent up to them. The needed supplies are assembled and sent up to the floors, and the phone continues to ring and ring and ring for the needs. Dishes are washed. Desserts and salads are prepared for dinner. By 11, we begin to send up the food for the floors. The 6 sisters, the men and the children's floor, then the nurses, the student nurses, the graduate nurses, and the nurses' aides. The priests, the visitors, the doctors, and maybe some businessmen were fed. And then we have the workmen, and of course, the poor at the back door. At noon, the dinner is served to the sisters, and the cycle continues all over again, gathering the food and the preparation for supper. In the afternoons, we included canning and baking and cleaning. Benediction was at 7 p.m. and we rushed to get there, not always making it. After benediction, we come back to the kitchen and finish up. And now it's suddenly past 9, and we hurry to our rooms for some quiet prayer and then bed. It was hard work, St. Peter. It was really, but we all did it for the love of Jesus. They once asked me to write up a day in the kitchen story for the hospital publication, The Highlights. I'm sure there's a copy in the Mother House archive someplace. In detail, I related all the hustle and bustle of the day, particularly in the morning. I talked about the various groups needing meals at different times and in a variety of places, the use of the dumbwaiter, providing supplies, the incessant ringing of that phone, requesting needs on the floors. But truth be told, no 2 days were alike. I did enjoy keeping logs. Peter, I brought the log just in case you wanted to see what it had in it. I had 2 logs in particular. In one of the logs, I brought the number of daily meals served to all of these people, the priests, the sisters, the guests, the patients, the elderly residents, which we also had, the nurses, aides, the student nurses, the night crew, workmen, and of course the unemployed men and the railroad jumpers at the door. Most days we served over 700 meals. The other log that I diligently kept was the canning that we did each year and the cost of fruit. Do you know that in 1942, though costly at that time, strawberries were $2.50 a case, and cherries were 50 cents a pound. Every corner of every cellar was filled with our canning. The garden and the canning all ended in 1961, when it became cheaper to buy canned goods instead of the work of canning. My claim to fame, not to be vain, St. Peter, was my bread. Oh, my bread. The employees all enjoyed the smell of the bread, and I provided bread for all of the hospital needs and sold it to the employees and the guests, often for building fundraisers, including Holy Family College. I have a soft spot in my heart also for the nursing students. Every Christmas and every Easter, I would make them these big special cookies. I used a large cookie cutter that I hid the rest of the year. Oh, prayer time, you asked, at St. Peter? Well, the kitchen sisters did try to get to the 6 a.m. Mass on time and the 7 p.m. benediction most of the time. Mostly private prayer was at 9 p.m. when returning to our room before falling asleep. I noted though in my notebook that I had a special intention that I prayed every hour of the day so that I could remind myself of being in God's presence even in all the chaos of the day. That's enough? You're going to let me in? Oh, thank you, St. Peter. Praise God.
Well, I know, Sister Reinhardt, we enjoyed your bread. Oh, that was so good, and all your other sweets. Well, thank you so much for hearing our stories from the past. And do you have some questions that you would like to ask and learn more about? Sister?
About how many sisters were here during that time?
At the
It said
hospital?
you did everything.
At the hospital?
Right.
In the first 25 years, I have no idea.
I think the initial group, there were 13.
13.
About 13.
Okay. But of course it grew and grew and grew because we fed all these people.
Any other questions?
Now, you were from Manitowoc Rapids, Mother Alexia?
Yes, I was.
And you're from Wisconsin as well?
Norman.
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 Okay. And you know, what I liked about Mother Alexia too is that she was half German and half Irish. So I was very happy to have someone who appreciated that culture. But I tell you, working with Sister Reinhardt in the kitchen and being able to taste her bread, oh, we had a good time. And you know, she was much younger than me, so we didn't have that many years together. She lived much longer. I was only 67 when I passed away, but she was what?
80
81?
something.
Okay, yeah. Mhm. Did you publish menus? Was sauerkraut on the menu?
Of course, of course.
Oh, okay. All right, just wondered. Okay, yeah.
Well, you notice we use notes because we've been so long in heaven now, we've forgotten some of these things. And we're dealing with more important things now. So. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
You're really good.